Yo, what's going on YouTube? I'm Sue, and this is going to be the first of a three-part series here on the channel. Each video in this series will be breaking down one of three threshold fights here in Etheria Restart. Threshold, in case you don't know, is where you farm modules, aka the gear or equipment for your characters in this game. If this is your first time playing a game like Etheria Restart, let me be clear. Gear is the most important thing in the game. Please, I cannot understate that enough. It does not matter how many rare SSR characters you have in a game like this. If you do not have your farm teams down pat in order to farm that good equipment, it's going to be all for nothing. Besides, many of the game's hyperlink charter quests in this game will require you to clear Terrormaton early on, so might as well do it properly. In case you haven't noticed, Terrormaton is going to be the first of the three threshold fights that the game forces you to fight, and therefore will be the focus of the first video here in this series. I'll go over each of Terrormaton's mechanics so that way you know what to look out for and what to avoid. Then we'll talk about a very free-to-play friendly team to help get you started. And finally, we will wrap up this video by offering some suggestions and upgrades to that very same team, so that way you could carry it into the later hell difficulties as you start to approach rank 35 or rank 40. I won't be covering the Inferno difficulty for Terrormaton here in this video. That's the hardest difficulty. We'll focus more on that in a separate video since it has slightly different mechanics, slightly different tuning. I want to wait until the player base kind of catches up a little bit to talk more about that. Anyways, without any further ado, let's jump in and talk about the mechanics now. Terrormaton is a threshold you farm to get various modules that can afford bonuses to things like attack, crit damage, and health. For all difficulties, you will be able to bring a party of 5 Animus against the Terrormaton and its 2 hands, those being the attacking hand and the guarding hand. For newer players, I recommend tweaking your continuous battle setting auto attack order, which is located under this menu here. You want to set it so that it prioritizes the attacking hand first, followed by the Terrormaton and the guarding hand last. This will all become apparent in just a second. Whenever the Terrormaton or one of its hands KOs any Animus on your team, the Terrormaton gets an extra turn. Considering the Terrormaton only has AoE attacks that hit reasonably hard as well as debuff your team, you obviously don't want to get hit by back-to-back attacks like that. Failure to kill the boss in a short time frame or have the ability to sustain through all of its damage is a surefire way to cause a system collapse. Now let's talk about the 2 hands. The attacking hand will always prioritize your squishiest, lowest health character on your team with a pretty powerful single target attack that can defense down them. You will want to take this hand out first if possible if your gear isn't that good, as the constant defense breaks when combined with the AoE attacks from the boss is again going to lead to a very swift death. The guarding hand simply increases the turn meter of the Terrormaton during each of its turns, and it has a lot of health, so it's really difficult to burst it down. It would simply be better for you to focus on the Terrormaton and ignore the second hand entirely. So now that you know the mechanics, let's talk about our very first team. You have 5 Animus slots to work with, and the team that I found that has the most success early on is one that contains a main damage dealer, a healer, a defense breaker to help facilitate the damage of the main DPS, some kind of off DPS or secondary defense breaker, and then finally some kind of support that can either increase the turn meter of your team or give a buff such as an attack buff or critical hit damage buff to everyone on your team. So the first 5 characters you see here on the left is going to be the most free-to-play friendly starter team that we can have. So let's start by talking about Leanne, who is going to be our main DPS. She is an SSR character, everyone has access to her, and the hyperlink charter basically requires you to use her early on to clear Terrormaton in order to actually progress through the various different quest lines and things like that. So obviously you're going to want to play her early on. Now, as for how we have her built, you want to try to just stack as much of the onslaught set as possible. If you can't make the set bonus, that doesn't really matter too much. The primary thing here to get is make sure that you have things like your attack bonus here and crit damage and crit rate bonus here on the left side. And for the right side main pieces, you're going to want to have at least 1 as crit rate and then the other 2 as critical hit damage. In Etheria Restart, critical hit damage on these right side modules provides more damage than something like attack percentage, at least in my experience from what I've tested so far. So again, crit rate and 2 crit damage should end up giving you the most amount of damage early on in the game. As far as the shell, just choose something that has the onslaught set bonus and something that has an effect that will either reduce the defense of whatever you're fighting, increase the damage of Leanne, or just kind of have an attack built in that does some damage. Anything that just increases damage or deals damage for the shell is going to be a-okay for this. Now, next up, let's talk about our healer. The game starts you with Dorothy. That's going to be the most free-to-play friendly option. If you have other characters that you have, like Valerian or Sonya, you can play those here as well. One thing that's really important to note is depending on your healer, the modules that you need will be different. You want to try to get at least some Swift Rush pieces on them or things that have substat speed in order to help your healer kind of cycle through. The faster your healer is, the less likely your team is to die from all of the various different AoE spam and attacks that they're going to be coming under fire. Really important for somebody like Dorothy, if you read her effects here, it says healing a single ally for a percentage of attack. Right? Notice how it says attack here, whereas opposed to another character like, say, let me find Sonya here for you real fast. Sonya, if you look at her details, it's based on her max HP, whereas Dorothy, her healing scales off of your maximum attack. So when it comes to building the character, obviously you want some form of speed, but for a character like Dorothy who scales off of attack percentage, you're going to want to have attack percentage modules on the character and then HP percentage bonus in one of the slots so that way you can help her survive. If you are playing somebody like Sonya where they scale off of max health, just make sure that you have health percentage HP bonus here as the right side module pieces for all of your 3 modules that are equipped on the character. As for the shell, it's pretty simple. Anything that gives healing over time or increases healing potency is going to be the shell of choice for you. Bonus points, if it has like Swift Rush or Wellspring or Cure as its set bonus, its matricy bonus here at the bottom. The third member here, our defense breaker, is going to be Gray, who the game also gives you for free from the tutorial. What makes Gray awesome is 2 things. Number 1 here, his S2 Thunderous Roar. It gives a crit rate buff to everyone on your team, which helps lessen the gear requirement, allowing you to do a lot more damage a lot easier earlier on in the game. And then his skill 3 here, Lightning Speed, is the AoE defense break, which will help us burst down the attacking hand or Terrormaton. As for how he's built, he should be the second fastest character on your team. So no matter how you decide to build him with gear, you want to make sure that he is the second fastest character. Your support should be the fastest character, and then Gray after that as your defense breaker should be your second fastest character. As for how you build him, you want crit rate on at least one of the modules here, and then the other ones you want either crit damage as ideal, but if you don't have it, attack percentage, right? As you can see here, I don't really have a ton of like great damage options here. If I could play 2 crit damage, I would, but obviously it's more important to have the double crit damage on Leanne here. As for the shells, it's pretty much the same story here as with Leanne. Anything that either increases your character's damage or has some kind of follow-up attack built in that can do bonus damage to either the attacking hand or the Terrormaton is going to be ideal. Now next up, we have our off DPS or secondary defense breaker. The best one by far is Dinah or Dina, however you want to pronounce it. Not only does her skill 3 here, Pristine Cleaver, have built-in defense break, if the target is already defense broken, you'll get these vulnerable and erosion debuffs, which will further increase the damage of your entire team. So therefore, it's important to have Dina behind Gray if he is going to be your defense breaker for your team. So that way you have your support goes first, then Gray goes defense breaks everything, then Dina goes and tries to defense break everything, but is already defense broken, and then you'll get the vulnerable and erosion debuff. So that's pretty much how it works here. That will give you the maximum amount of damage going into Leanne as the last person on your team, and she will do the most amount of damage that way. So in essence, it should be support, then Gray, then Dina, then healer could be either between Gray and Dina or after Dina, and then into Leanne. That's kind of how the structure of the team should actually flow. If you don't have Dina, you just didn't pull her early on, because some people don't get specific SRs until much later, until like rank 20, rank 30, or in the extreme cases of RNG, you might not see the character until rank 40. Just put any non-blue animus in this slot that you like have. So if you have like a Messiah or a Heinrich or any other SSR that you pull, maybe like a Hell Kid, All that will be fine here in this spot, but Dinah is going to be the best option, I feel like, not only early on because she's going to be super easy to build, but when we get to the upgraded team later on in the video, you'll find that she's still relevant there. And spoiler alert, she is pretty much the best option for the Inferno team as well. So you're definitely going to want to invest in Dinah early. She's going to be super good throughout your entire Etheria restart career. As for how you actually have her built, it's very, very similar to how Gray is built, with like one major exception, right? You will have at least one crit rate on the right side, and then the other two pieces here should have effect accuracy. That way she can guarantee get her debuffs off. Gray's kind of is dependent on whether or not he crits. Hers actually requires effect accuracy, so just make sure you throw some effect accuracy pieces and a crit rate to help with the damage, and you should be good to go. Oh, right, one last thing, the shell. Shell could just be anything you want that helps increase her damage. Now, the last character here on the team, for at least the starter team, is going to be number 41. If you have things like Freya as the SSR, which will be, as this video is being recorded, it's going to be the release banner. If you're watching this sometime in the future, Freya may not be up. You could also use the character over here, Chiaki the Echo, which is this one right here. So you can play Chiaki the Echo instead as your supporter if you so choose. But anything that basically gives either a turn meter increase to your team. So for example, the skill 3 here on number 41, Boosting Potion, gives a 35% turn meter as well as a 2-turn attack buff to everyone on your team. Anything that gives turn meter increase or attack increase, or ideally both, will work here. You could also use something like, say, Bayantin if you have her. Right, she gives a attack and crit damage buff to everyone on your team, regardless of what buffer you decide to use here. Right, just make sure that the person in this slot is the fastest person on your entire team to help maximize damage. Right, if they go first and put up their buffs, it will mean that Gray will have attack buff, which means he can hit harder, which means that Dina can hit harder, which means that Leanne can hit harder, and therefore you will kill the boss much faster. As for number 41, how she's built, your mileage may vary based on what other opener you decide to go with. You just want to put as much speed as possible. Again, it should be the fastest character. Just get as many Swift Rush pieces as you have. And if you just haven't gotten around to farming Doki Doki yet, you just haven't unlocked it, or for whatever reason, then make sure that you just put her with the most amount of speed substat pieces as possible. And then for the right side pieces, you can basically play whatever you want. HP bonus is going to probably end up being the best in most scenarios. As for the module, very similar to your healer. Anything that gives healing over time or healing is very good for characters like number 41 or Freya, who have built-in healing in their kit. For those that don't have healing in their kit, for example, Chiaki the Echo, you're better off playing a shell that increases their turn meter over time. Anyways, now that you understand the 5 roles that we have for Animus here for the basic Terrormaton team, let's take a quick look at how a run should all come together, so that way you can see how the team plays out. As you progress further into Etheria Restart, the Terrormaton and the various different thresholds will start to get a bit harder. So let's talk about some of the necessary upgrades that you're going to need in order to succeed as you start to approach the Hell difficulties. Let's start with Leanne. As you start to farm the higher difficulties of Terrormaton early on, you should start to pick up some more powerful attack gear like Onslaught, and eventually you'll also get things like the Keen Eye set. As I talked about earlier, in my experience, critical hit damage does a lot more damage than attack percentage, so Keen Eye is definitely going to be the primary set if you can get it on Liam. Otherwise, you want to focus on Onslaught. For the right side pieces, again, you're going to want to have one of these modules be crit rate, and then the other two should be critical hit damage in order to maximize her DPS. As for her shells, as you start to get around like rank 35 to 40, you should already be farming Nico Nana anyway, or at least have already done it as early as like rank 30. So you should have picked up something like White Fang. Otherwise, just play whatever you have that increases her overall damage or has some kind of follow-up attack that does damage to the boss. As for the turn meter pusher, Chiaki the Echo is probably going to be the best free-to-play option. It was for the starter team, but when you just start out at like rank 5 or whatever, you might not necessarily have anything other than number 41. You might not have pulled this, but by the time you start to reach like rank 30 or so, you should have a copy of Chiaki the Echo, so you should be able to kind of transition over to her. She just has really good turn meter push for the entire team, as well as that team-wide attack buff. As for the modules, it doesn't really matter. Just try to get the 12 Matrices Swift Rush set. The right side pieces don't really matter. Just HP, I guess, bonus to help her survive, so that way she doesn't accidentally die and trigger the boss's AoE attack. But just as fast as you could possibly get her, should be the fastest possible character on your team. And for the shell here, it's just going to be something that increases her turn meter, helps her kind of cycle her turns. Therefore, she could kind of help cleanse with her basic attack skill, any debuffs you got, but largely just to kind of keep the buffs up, keep the turn meter management going. As for your healer, you could stick with Dorothy if you want, but Sonya, in my opinion, is still the best SR healer in the game. You could play Valerian. It doesn't really matter what you put here. I'm just using Sonya for the hell of it. At this point, by the time you've made it to the hell difficulty, you should be on something like maybe 8 Matrices Swift Rush or 12 Matrices Swift Rush to help cycle, get your kind of your speed up for your healing, keep that healing going. It's really important to make sure that nobody on your team actually dies. And then you could have the 8-piece cure set as well, right, to help kind of increase the overall healing potency of your team. Remember, if you're on somebody like Dorothy still at this point, you're going to want to have some HP and attack percentage right side modules, but otherwise, it's best to just stack kind of HP if that's what you want, if that's what you scale off of. Shell, very similar to last time, is going to be either something that helps increase the speed or the healing potency or gives the healing over time buff. You don't necessarily need to play something here like Gigabyte. You can play whatever module that helps either with your speed or your overall healing. Now let's jump ahead here to Dinah so you can see how her gear has changed as well. She's basically going to be totally replacing Gray as you start to approach the hell difficulties. You'll start phasing out Gray for other characters, specifically 1 or 2 that we'll talk about next, right? And if you want to see how her gear is at this point, you should be on like 8 to 12 piece Swift Rush at this point, and our right side is still going to look very, very similar. You're going to want to have crit rate as one of them and 2 effect accuracies, so that way we can guarantee land the debuff, and anything else that just helps increase our survivability or overall damage, I leave that to you, is going to be fine. As for the shell, anything that helps increase her turn speed or also deals more damage will be fine. I went with the turn speed here, the turn meter on Gigabyte, simply because I feel like when it comes to the live server, once this game goes live on June 5th, most people might not have access to multiple damage shells. You'll probably have like 1 or 2 level and only like 1 or 2 speed boosting ones. So I didn't want to recommend 3 of the speed boosting, or I'm sorry, 3 of the damage ones. So yeah, this one, honestly, Dina, it's the least important one. As long as it either increases her speed or her damage, it doesn't really matter what she has here as our shell. Now for the last one here, the one that's going to be taking over for the off DPS that Dina used to be, it should be some kind of strong DPS of your choice. Dieting is, in my opinion, the best character you think you can play here in this slot. You could play an SSR, but I feel like early on in the game, right, for the first month or 2 of Etheria Restart, you might not have somebody that can out-damage Dieting, and the reason for that is his passive. He gets a bunch of free crit rate, and any extra bonus crit rate you invest in him over 100% gets converted to just straight crit damage, and as we've already talked about throughout this guide, crit damage is way better than attack percentage. So this character is just going to be hitting like an absolute truck with basically barely any good gear on him. He's super, super strong as a boss killer. He's pretty much for my E7 fam. This guy is basically the commander of the arena of the game. You're going to want to have him built. If you just don't like him or you just didn't pull him, if you go over here, right, Victor here is a comparable option. So early on, until you get like absolutely cracked out gear, I think that both these characters, Dieting and Victor, are going to be basically your best DPS option. They're going to be better in some cases than Leanne. So yeah, you just want to pick one of the two. Dieting is my pick for the last DPS here. He'll make your life so much easier in the higher difficulties because he just does so much damage. And how you have him built is very similar to Leanne. You might have some harvest gear laying around to give him some defense penetration. You can use that on him. You could use onslaught set. My go-to here is going to be Kenai because, as we talked about, crit damage is just way better than attack percentage. And that damage bonus here on Kenai is just super, super strong. And building him is pretty simple, right? You're going to want to have 2 crit rates on him to guarantee that he has that 100% crit rate no matter what. Because like your subs may be different than mine. Just as long as you have 2 crit rates on him and 1 crit damage, he should very easily clear 100%, get that conversion to crit damage and start ripping through people and doing a ton of damage. As for the shell, just put whatever you have on him. I'd honestly put your best overall damage shell on him and then the second best one on Leanne. Before we jump in and we look at the overall upgraded team, just real quick to recap how the fight should actually go and turn order. Chiaki should go first, turn meter, push everybody up, give everybody an attack buff on your team. Then Dinah should go and have some kind of defense break in order to enhance the damage. Then you have Dieting come in to use his ultimate for big damage. And then Leanne should use her skill 3 to either finish off the Terrormaton or the attacking hand if your gear isn't that good. And if not, the turn meter steal should allow her to go right for her skill 2, Blazing Wings, to pick off any stragglers. As for your healer here, if you don't have really good gear, then you can just have them on there at any speed tuning you want. The faster, the better, and they will help sustain you through the fight as the rest of the 4 characters proceed to go through the rotation over and over again. But if you have very, very good gear, you don't actually really need a healer because the other 4 characters alone with no 5th character can actually solo the boss, and I'll show you that as we recap here at the end of the video. And that's going to do it for my beginner's guide to Terrormaton. As you can see, that last team was the best and fastest one that I was able to find. And if you were able to find one that's even better, please let me know down in the comment section below. A huge shout out to my friend Drak for his help in testing teams for this actual guide. And if you want to see more guides just like this one for Doki Doki as well as Aurora coming up, make sure you get subscribed to the channel. I should be doing a bunch more guides for Etheria Restart. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later now.